Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP Bardadin, which is Bard Paladin class in Baldur's Gate 3. So in this build guide I'm going to be breaking it down. We're going to be taking 10 levels of Bard and 2 levels of Paladin. Now what makes this build great is we get all the benefits of the Paladin with Smites, but we get a full caster in Bard and we'll get up to level 6 spell slots, which allows us to do really big damage. And you can take out some bosses in one hit. I've done it before with this build and it's incredibly powerful. So for our cantrips, we're going to take, I typically like Friends, because if this is the face of your party, having high charisma and Friends is very useful. And then for our second one, I like Minor Illusion, because you can use this to pickpocket, you can use it to group enemies together for a fireball. There's a lot of utility in that, and some of the other ones are just not as great. Vicious Mockery can be pretty decent as well, gives a disadvantage on its next attack roll. For our spells, it's nice to have a bit of healing. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a good one, knocks enemies prone. Dissonant Whispers can frighten a creature. And then for our final one, you can take Speak with Animals. This is a great skill to have, especially if you're the face of your party. Sleep is great too, because you can spread it between a lot of enemies. In early game, that 24 hit points is really useful. So something like that for our first spells. For our instruments, really whatever you prefer. And then for our abilities, this is where the build gets really important. So strength is important as a paladin, and that's something we want to focus on. But high dexterity is actually a little bit better, and we're going to be using dexterity weapons. So strength is really not as important as it previously was for other builds. Taking something like this, we could go, increasing your constitution is kind of a nice thing to have, but somewhere around here we're going to take, if you get to level 1, or in the first act we can actually get the Hag's Hair. That's going to increase our charisma to 18, and that makes this a whole lot easier. So this is the starting level for Bard. We're going to be taking, if you're doing this as you play through, it might be best to take the Paladin first and then respec later, but for our Bard level 2, our extra spell that we're going to take, Heroism can be decent, give you extra 5 hit points. Thunder Wave for the pushback is also quite nice, but we get our Jack of All Trades, gives half your proficiency bonus to ability checks that you're not proficient in. You get the Song of Rest, which is nice. And for our spell, we're just going to take Thunder Wave. It doesn't matter a whole lot. You can take another, whatever really utility you need for your class. But this is where things get interesting, is level 3. This is when we get to choose what subclass that we are going with. And this is important. We're going to choose, I guess for spells, Cloud of Daggers. Incredible area of effect. So, College of Lore is nice, you get cutting words, but College of Swords is much better, because we get a few spells and actions that are really powerful. For our fighting style, I typically like the 2-weapon fighting for this, as we're going to be using dexterity-based weapons. I think that works best. And for our spell, yeah, I think Cloud of Daggers is the best at level 2. Heat Metal can also be a really great one, because it gives disadvantage to enemies. So that's what we're going to go for level 3. And what makes this build really powerful is the fact that we can use, the Bard gets the full spell casting, so you can go up to level 6 in spells, and that's powerful when you're going to be doing Smites. So Vicious Mockery or Blade Ward for our next cantrip, not a huge deal. Heat Metal or Hold Person's actually quite good too. I like either of those, so something like that would be good. There's a few other spells in here that are nice, but I think that's the best one. For our feat, there's 2 great ones here, so obviously increasing our ability scores is nice. Savage Attacker is also a really nice one that we want, because this is going to roll our, whenever we do melee attacks, it rolls our damage dice twice and uses the highest result. For the first one, I think ability improvement's nice to round off dexterity and charisma to give you that nice dexterity check +3 and charisma check +4. So we're going to go with ability improvement into level 5. So this is where we get our Bardic improvement and Bardic Inspiration improvement and a level 3 spell. So Speak of the Dead is fun, but I wouldn't recommend it fully. I like the Glyph of Warding. This can give you a choice of what type of damage you want to inflict, and this is actually a very powerful glyph to use, so we're going to go with that for a level 3, but you can go with something like Speak with the Dead. For a spell, we're not going to replace anything. What makes this build powerful is we get a lot of different spells, and as you get to the Bard level 10, you get to choose 2 free spells, and I'm going to break that down once we get there, but It's very powerful. So our next level 3 spell, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Enhanced ability can be pretty powerful. I think we're just going to go with something like Fear can be decent, but it really just depends. Bestow Curse, Fiend Death. They don't have great level 2 or level 3 spells, so you could really just go with really whatever you think. Nice to have healing sometimes, so maybe we'll just take that. But level 10 is really when the Bard picks up, so we're approaching there at Bard level 7. Again, if you're doing this as you play through, Paladin 2 and then adding in the Bard is kind of the best way to do it. But for our next spell, we get level 4 spell slots. This is where things get a little bit better, so Dimension Door can be a really great one because it allows you to move around freely. Confusion is also another really nice one. Confuse a group of enemies, causing them to attack on random. We're going to go with that. It's a great concentration, but it's a really great skill to have. You want to do a lot of crowd control as a Bard, and then with our Paladin, we're all about the smites. So kind of a blend of the two, but everyone's a damage dealer in Baldur's Gate 3, so Polymorph can be pretty funny, but I don't really recommend it. Dimension Door, I think, is probably our best go. You can take you and a partner and move them around the map. That's pretty powerful. So we get our next feat here, and we can bump the charisma up to 20 with the ability improvement +2. I think that Savage Attacker is pretty great, though, because it gives you a anytime you roll your damage dice, you get to roll it twice, and you're just flat out dealing more damage. That's great. Higher charisma is going to help with damage too, but I think that this is just the best way to go about doing it. So we're going to take that there. Now there are gloves that will increase your dexterity. There's gloves that will increase your strength as you get into Act 3. I would recommend either of those. It's really just dependent on what you want to use for weaponry. Now we get our level 5 spells here, and this is where things can get a little bit interesting. I think that Hold Monster is the best one here. So we had Hold Person, but Hold Monster can work on anyone. So any enemy that's not undead. Pretty much everything in the game but undead. And the nice thing about that is we don't really need to worry about undead because Paladins deal a lot of damage against them. Especially with Divine Smite, it deals extra damage. So that's not a huge deal. Now this is where things get interesting in this build. So Bard level 10. And you can see there's a lot going on here. So cantrips, Mage Hand can be a pretty good one. I don't recommend ever True Strike. For our spells, Mass Cure Wounds can be pretty nice. It's good to have that extra healing for your team. Not best to use that as the action economy is all about damage in Baldur's Gate, but having a heal can be pretty nice. Magical Secrets. This is where the build gets interesting. So for this, I would recommend, I really like Conjure Elemental. Reason being, having a water elemental alongside you is really nice to deal area of effect damage that you don't really have. This doesn't require concentration. You just summon them in and they're there. This is a really powerful thing to have as it's going to direct some attacks to it, and the elemental's actually really strong. So I really like that one myself. Now for the second one, Counterspell can be great. Counterspell is nice just to have and dispel any type of attacks that may be coming your way. It can be very useful in a lot of areas. It's level 3 too, so we do get a lot of spell slots, so it's kind of nice to have it on us. Haste is the other choice that I would make. So this gives you haste in, gain in action, become faster, and +2 to armor class. Either Counterspell or Haste would be our best go. There's a lot of different spells here. We can do... let's look through. Guiding Bolt. There's some really interesting options that we got here. So there's quite a few different spells that we can roll with. I do think that that might be our best. Or something like Spirit Guardians is the other choice. Spirit Guardians are really powerful. And since you're going to be up close, Spirit Guardians can be really great. If you have someone with Counterspell like Gale, I would take Spirit Guardians. But there's also Haste there that you can think about. Crusader's Mantle. I do think that that's probably our best bet in terms of our slots here. But you do get the option of choosing any one of these here. So if you find something that works better for your team, I would go with it. But Conjure Elemental, Spirit Guardians, Haste Fireball can be even nice, but Counterspell is kind of that fourth choice. So anything from there would be best. Skills, we can add in Medicine, Intimidation, Persuasion, just whatever you really need. And there it is for level 10. So that is it for the Bard. We're going to add in a couple levels of Paladin here to round this out. And then I'll talk a little bit about strategy that you want to use with this. So level 11 Bard doesn't really get anything interesting. You just get another level. You get the level 6 spell slot, but we're going to get that because the Paladin's a half caster. So at level 12, we will get it. So we had to choose our subclass. I think Oath of Vengeance is nice. You get the Inquisitor's Might there. Oathbreaker is my personal favorite. But yeah, we're going to roll with that. Don't get much choice there. Level 2, this is where we get our smites. And now this is when the build fully comes together. So our fighting style, defense, I would say, is probably the best thing to go. We went with the dual weapon fighting there. So great weapon fighting is not going to be helpful. Defense is just kind of the best to go to. Just gives you a +1 to armor class while wearing armor. So yeah, that's just nice to have. Now for our spells. Command is very powerful. We want command on here. Command, move closer, is very useful. You can have a bunch of enemies coming towards you and you just start smiting them all. Compelled duel is decent. Cure wounds, since we didn't take it previously. Take off bless. We're going to be adding in Searing Smite and Thunderous Smite. So it's nice to have all these different options for Smite. Shield of Faith can be okay, but it wastes concentration. Command being very powerful. Compelled duel is kind of like your, if you need to save someone, you can get them to face you, as they're going to get disadvantage if they don't attack you. Cure wounds, and then our 3 smites. There it is. So for this build, it really works best to go with, I'm not sure if this is going to work out properly. It really works best to go with two weapons in your hand. I'm not sure if I have the equipment to do this because I'm not on my right class, but the best way to go about doing this is you're going to proc your Spirit Guardians, and you can go with the Necrotic or Radiant damage, depending on what it needs. You're going to be dealing a lot of Radiant damage anyways, but, oh, Withers didn't like that. So now you're just a spinning Beyblade of Death, and you're just going to run in with this. What's nice, too, is you can have a whole lot of different utility here. You get a whole lot of options for the elementals. I would recommend going with the Water Myrmidon, and the reason for that being is it gets its own, let's see here, it gets a nice area of effect attack and just overall utility, and allows you to kind of focus on staying alive, as it has more health than you do. For our damage, mobile flourish, not really the focus. We want slashing flourish, as we can deal damage in a range in front of us, gives us 2 attacks. We also get a ranged flourish that we can use, so that's also nice. We're going to be wanting to use hold monster when we don't have Spirit Guardians open, or hold person. This is going to interrupt our concentration, but really the best way to go about doing this is to have all your buffs on and make sure that you do have something that you can smite with. And then once you get to it, we're just going to be using Divine Smite over and over and over. It gives us an incredible amount of damage, and you can even use that as a level 6 attack. So very powerful. I would recommend this build if you're looking for something new. Paladin mixed with Warlock, Sorcerer, or Bard is all strong, but Bard 10 plus Paladin seems to be the best way. Bardadin, that's a great build. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button below. Feel free to leave any comments if you have any questions, and I'll be doing my best to answer them as quickly as possible and help out with this Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.